All right, I think. How are we doing? Can you hear me? There we go. And I think we're just about ready to start here. I'm going to send out my announcement tweet. I'm streaming live right now on twitch.tv and mixer.com. Join me as I live code a Visual Studio extension today. Alright, tweet is out, you can hear me? Alright, check digits already checking in. Thanks so much for coming back again. So I'm hitting 2 streaming services. I know a lot of folks at their businesses, they block Twitch. If you can't get to Twitch, maybe you can get to Mixer. I have a feeling at some point I'm going to start rebroadcasting to YouTube also. We'll see. Already got 8 viewers over here on Twitch. And I'm checking my Mixer stream. Let's make sure that's up and running. I'm online. Good. Alright. And it looks like we've got a healthy bitrate going out. Cool. My name is Jeff Fritz. Welcome to my stream. I've taken to calling this on the replays that I save over to YouTube Fritz and Friends, even though I tried having John Galloway on one day last week and it didn't work too well. The rendering, the streaming using Skype at the same time overloaded my video card, and I'm using an Ultrabook as my streaming machine, and I'm going to need to get a little bit more power, so I actually have some more hardware on order so we can improve that, so we can try and get some other folks on here. I want to be able to pair program, answer your questions, interview some folks, talk about different things, cool things that are going on, and I want to pair program and work with folks on their projects, not just mine. So, I hope the music isn't too loud. I think that I try and keep it at a nice chill level coming across. This is music to code by, written by my friend Carl Franklin. Today's song, this is Red from the second album. And it's just going to be looping in the background. This music is designed to be played and get you in the flow, keep you focused at a nice pace, and just kind of fall into the background. And it's also kind of chill. It's nice. So Carl graciously approved my use of using his music here in the background. He's written an app that you can download and use on your mobile devices called Music to Flow By. And you'll be able to get some free music when you subscribe and use that service as well. Today's hat, I wear a different hat each stream. I'm actually going back and wearing the hat I used on the first test stream. This is my Overwatch hat. Overwatch is a great first-person shooter game from the folks at Blizzard. Last night, and I'm wearing it kind of to celebrate, last night was the start of the first professional Overwatch League preseason. That's pretty cool, even though my local team, the Philadelphia Fusion, they're not going to be participating in the preseason. There's some player logistics there. It sounds kind of weird, player logistics. I don't know what's going on there. But they've apparently got players from 10 different nations, and they made it sound like there's problems with folks getting a green card or something like that and getting into the States so they can play video games. So, the other thing that Blizzard's doing today is the release of an expansion for their card game called Hearthstone. I really enjoy that game. If you're on Twitch, you can see my connection information for the Blizzard games is here on my profile on the channel, down in the About box, somewhere down below. So, just checking in real quick, we've got a couple more followers since we last broadcast on Tuesday. Thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate you guys jumping on. Twitch even elevated me to the status of affiliate because I've been broadcasting so much, and I've got enough followers that I've crossed that threshold. Thank you, Twitch. I'm not looking to make money. I'm not looking for subscriptions or cheers from you guys. I'm just looking to boost the profile of this stream so that folks can learn to code Maybe I can learn from you, and we can have a good time together. So, I think that streams and video broadcasts like this are a little bit easier for folks to get access to and learn from than having to travel halfway around the world to attend a conference. And don't get me wrong, I'm more than happy to speak at a conference, and I want to meet you at conferences and talk about different things and experiences that you have in using development tools and technologies. But I think I can reach you more frequently and easier and get more in-depth with content on streams and video broadcasts like this one. All right, enough setup, enough nonsense and chit-chat. Let's get into our project. So, project that I've been working on is something that I've been tinkering with for about a month or two, and I wanted to bring it to the stream and have some fun with you about it. I call it EpicBuildMusic, and the idea behind this project is I want to make developing with Visual Studio a little bit more fun. I've always said that if work isn't fun, it's work. It's boring. It's tedious. I want to make it more interesting, put a little smile on your face while you're developing. So I wanted to put in a little bit of music to play while Visual Studio is building your project, right? So if it's .NET, if it's JavaScript, whatever it is that you're building in Visual Studio, I want to have a little bit of music playing in the background. And we got some other great ideas from folks about having sound effects play or visual effects play when a build completes or fails. I think that's a great idea, and we will add those features, but today I'm focusing on finishing this first cut at allowing you to play music while the build of your project is going on. So let me change scenes here so we can take a look at our code. This is the code on GitHub. It's open source. Issues are open. Pull requests are open. This is public. It's MIT licensed. I encourage you to check it out, browse out here, send me a pull request. Take a look at the source code. Send me an issue. I'm more than happy to respond to them, and we can go through and work on them together on the stream, offline. If you want to write some code and contribute it as a pull request, we'll review it together here on the stream and work together on making this a really cool extension that's fun for people to use in Visual Studio. So, and for those of you that haven't been here before, you'll see I've got across the top Twitter account, C#Fritz, my blog, jeffreyfritz.com, number of folks that are following us. For some reason, the label is only loading the folks on Twitch, and it's not including the folks on Mixer, even though it's I can see in the application here, it is finding those folks that are following us on Mixer. And then, of course, the number of folks that are viewing both on Twitch and Mixer right now on the far right. The event list just above me is going to show you when new folks join us, when new folks start following. And there's all kinds of bells and whistles that will appear here to my right when new folks join us. So if you are new here, you want to be notified when I go back streaming, go ahead and click that follow button, whether you're on Mixer or Twitch. We'll celebrate that you're joining us here for a few seconds. I'll thank you for joining me, and you'll be notified next time I come online. Gotta have coffee. Happy Thursday morning here, December 7th. So let's take a look at the project. I've been building this and working on just making it simple, easy to do. I've written it a little bit more into the README down here, and I've been working in my dev branch. I don't like to work in the master branch. The master branch of a source code repository really is where I see is the current production state of things, right? This is the things that we've published that folks can reach out and consume and use. So, in here I have three folders. Of course, the folder that contains the actual extension, and then two test projects that I'm using to actually test to make sure that they build and work properly. We've got a comment here from .commie. Are the changes from Tuesday on GitHub? Yes, they are. You can see here, let me show you the commits. So you can see here the commits from December 5th that we worked on during that stream. My first working on an option page. Now, I'm not a designer. I'm all thumbs when it comes to Windows Forms. I haven't written Windows Forms applications in years, okay? So I put some things down in there. I mean, it's a simple text box and a couple buttons. it's nothing to write home about. We can clean that up. If some of you have a better eye for designing, I encourage you, help me out with that a little bit. Let's make it look better, feel better. I'll take your pull requests. I'll give you a little bit of credit for helping out with the project. And we'll get this thing published together, and it'll look great and feel great. So you can see where I'm working here, because I'm in the dev branch, and the issues that I'm looking at. Now, the first issue, this is where I left off on Tuesday. I wasn't persisting. Oh, that should be persisting. Right, let's change that. Persisting the during build music setting from the options dialog. So when you finished setting your option that said, hey, play this music, it wasn't saving that. Now, we learned from looking at the documentation for Visual Studio extensions that properties on a dialog page would be persisted by Visual Studio. They're actually saved into the registry. .com, says he's looking at the dev branch. Yeah, we don't want to commit things directly into master. When I am ready to publish, right, when we are ready to cut that first preview release, I will merge, I'll squash and merge my changes up into master. I'll tag it, and then we'll cut a V6. We'll cut a Visual Studio extension file that folks can download and install. Now, we'll talk about publishing a little bit later. Back to this issue. These settings should be persisted by Visual Studio and saved into the registry. Now, I know there's a way with Visual Studio settings for your settings to be persisted somewhere in the cloud. I don't know if it's OneDrive or if it's somewhere with your Visual Studio settings, but there's a way that they get persisted so that even though I'm logged into this machine here with these settings, when I go and log on with this machine over here and use Visual Studio, right, those settings are persisted across the cloud and they come down and they're still used over there. And if my settings for the during build music change and it's not the default, if it's something else, I'm going to want that MP3 or that WAV file that I'm searching for to be available and usable from both locations. So that's a logistics thing that I let me make a note of so we can come back to this, right? Persisting settings for music across machines. And really, this is just a what happens. What happens if, what happens and how do settings get persisted across sessions and machines? How do I ensure that music files are present on the next machine that receives my settings, right? And that's a logistics thing, right? We got to figure out how that stuff, those settings travel and stay kept up with us. So, all right. And folks who are over there on Mixer, I see there's a couple folks on Mixer. If you want to comment, if you want to talk, if you want to chat as well, you can see the chat, the integrated chat above me. I know you won't see in the Mixer chat room the folks sending their messages from Twitch, but if you want to talk with them, of course, you can look online in the video and you'll see it up above me here. All right. Let me go back to that previous issue. And this is kind of a question, a thing I have with GitHub also. I don't like having to go back to the issues list to navigate to the previous issue that I was reading, right? That feels kind of weird. It feels bad that I have to bounce back and forth navigating in order to see what folks, to see those other issues, right? That feels weird. All right, I am going to pause the preview here in my Twitch dashboard. There we go. Because I don't need to continue to see that preview, and I see it pausing and reloading, and I don't want it to interfere with my bit rate that I'm transmitting for the folks here. All right. So, there we go. Excuse me. All right. Let's go to the code. and start taking a look at this. Here I am back in Visual Studio, and I did some things. I was having some problems with debugging into Visual Studio extensions last time I was on here. Look at that. That recent project list doesn't load up the first time still. I did open an issue on that, and I've started to get feedback from the Visual Studio team. I was having some problems previously debugging and getting into the experimental instance of Visual Studio. And I talked to some folks, and it feels like it might be a problem with my OBS settings, because I've set OBS to actually perform and take and you be in the process priority of above normal, so that it's streaming, right? So that the priority process that my machine is focusing on is OBS, to make sure that I'm delivering a good stream. I've backed that off so that I can get a little bit more oomph out of Visual Studio trying to work and deliver this. So if I run this now, just to show you the state that we're in with this, and then we can start taking a look at why this isn't persisting those settings. And I think I know why, because I looked at my source code, because I do a little bit of prep before I get on stream here. I looked at my source code, and there's some things that I'm not doing quite right in here that we need to take a look at. So Visual Studio, there's my splash screen. We should see this come up here in just a second. Now, even though I have just my code configured, there we go. It is still going to go through and acknowledge and look at all the things. Where is it? Come here, you. There we go. That it needs to load for my application. I'm not even going to load my test projects right now, because I know that playing the music works, right? We've gotten past those bugs. We worked on that on Tuesday. We've got the music actually playing. Let me work on this options dialog. And if I scroll down in the options dialog, you will see EpicBuildMusic. Okay, so there's the dialog page that I've added, and it has default music checked and music to play during build disabled, because this is checked. And we should put some labels and things in here and fix the way that this is lined up, because that doesn't look like it's lined up quite right. We'll get to that. Because right, that user interface. I'm typically a server-side web developer. I'm more focused on functionality than look and feel in my day job, right? The normal things that I do. So moving these bits around a couple pixels, it's pixels, I know, whatever. So if I uncheck that, it does properly show this text box, and I can browse, and it does now do my appropriate filtering for music files, MP3 or WAV files, and I can choose my Epic Sax guy, and I can say OK, but it doesn't persist that setting. If I come back, Tools, Options, and actually it does have that setting in there now. What it's not doing is it's not sending that setting back into my music player. It's not available for me over there. And the reason for that, I found out, is because I'm capturing, when you look at the events that I'm working on here inside that user control that I've embedded in the options dialog, I'm capturing the leave event for the user control. Now, I'm never leaving the actual user control. This isn't what's actually occurring, right? This isn't what I'm changing. I want to capture when that value changes in that text box, or the text box gets disabled or enabled because that checkbox was checked that says use the default music, and I want to send that setting over so that it can be used and referenced by my music player. So, let's take a look at what I'm doing wrong there and see what I can do to fix that. Alright. It isn't the leave event that I want to be capturing, because I'm never actually leaving. And I think I did a nice job here of capturing the logic that I want on this. Let me stop the debugger, and I think that other Visual Studio should be gone. It is. Okay. I don't want to capture the leave event of my user control. And here's my user control, right? This is what is embedded in that options pages is this, right? So I get my nice Windows Forms designer that I can work with here. And I'm not doing something isn't working right with my scaling because I've got all this space here in my designer, but when it appears over in the options dialog, as you saw, things are moved around and scaled not right. And I know we did some things in .NET Framework 4.7 to fix that, but there's something I have to attach to the user control in order to handle that scaling capability. And it's like an interface or something. I'm going to come back to that in a bit. And what's kind of embarrassing is I helped publish some of the information about that change, and I just don't remember it because it was a lecture I gave a while ago. So I'm going to come back and we'll look at that later. And that's the truth. I'm not trying to fib or scam here. I don't remember it. I'm going to have to go look it up. So in my user control, I really want to save the setting for what this is. Either when you exit the text box, when the contents of the text box changes, or when you click the checkbox. So I feel like I want to move this test into its own method and move it out of handling this event. And then I want to trigger this same event, whether you're leaving the text box, the value changes in the text box. Probably not when the value changes, because it will trigger every time somebody types in a character in the text box or changes a character. And that's going to get unwieldy. That's going to be a little... that's going to be a problem. So let's deal with that. And yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to take this. Let me take this source code because I want to make sure that I get it. I'm going to take that, copy it out, and I'm just going to create, private void persist during music selection. That sounds reasonable. All right, and I'll just paste that in there. So now I've refactored and moved that off somewhere. I could have done the Visual Studio refactoring with the control period action, but this works all the same. Let me bring up my properties window here, and I'm going to flip over to events. Now see, look at that. The leave isn't even populated here. It's general options, user control, leave. I'm going to just delete that. All right. Back over to my designer. Cool. Okay. So I have my persist during music selection over here. So let me go down to... So when I finish with that file OK... Right? So when I've exited the file dialog, right, I could trigger it here. Yeah, let me trigger it here. Persist during music selection. All right, persist during music selection. So I'll trigger that check and that save over to my options page from here. Right, and my options page should have its values persisted. My option page is just another class that inherits from dialog page and allows me to embed that user control on my options page, but it has my during build music values set here. So that makes sense. And the other one was when the check changes on my my default music checkbox here. I also want to inspect and do that setting appropriately. So after set during build controls, 1 second there, Mordecai. I'm going to come to you in a second. I'm going to save this here so that gets saved. So Mordecai writes here, why do you want to persist even if the user cancels out of the file dialog? You know what? You're right. I want to move this line inside of my cancel. So I'm just going to Alt up and move it there. And let's see, let's tab that over so it looks pretty. Good call. That would have been a mistake because it would have always, right? The bug that Mordecai caught there was if I put it down here on line 86, whether I would have pressed OK or cancel in my open file dialog, it would have still persisted that setting. It's a good point. Don't want to do that. We only want to persist it if you didn't click cancel. So I think that should now save things properly back into my option page during build music setting. So I think we're okay with that. And it's, if the file does exist, we'll persist it back, which is kind of a silly thing to check if you're coming out of the file open dialog. Which also means, gosh, if you key in a file location there, I should change and handle that also. So let me come back over here, and I'm going to wire up to the leave event, the leave event for this text box, so that if you key something in here, when you leave that text box, okay, we will persist that information as well. Makes sense? Am I on pace there? What do you think, guys? Have I covered all the scenarios of when I want to persist that setting? I think that's where I want to be. So I've got that set. Let me save everything here. And now I just want to make sure then that should save into my options page. And we modified my music player. So my music player has now a file name property here that is just a get set, and it has a default file name. Now, I thought there was a way that I was pushing values into that. And here it is. In the build music package. So when you hit play, I will push the during build music option over into that. Now, options, and this is kind of an idiosyncrasy of Visual Studio. I need to get dialog page. I need to get that page, and I can then reference the values that are in it and using this weird type of here. It'd be really nice if this was a generic, and I could say, right, option page here. That would be really cool if I could do that. But as you can see, that API isn't here in the Visual Studio package object. A lot of these things that we're seeing in the APIs we're working with in Visual Studio have been around for a very, very long time, so that we can have backwards compatibility between versions of Visual Studio. So I'm going to get that dialog page, and then I should be able to push that setting back into my music player. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to put breakpoints in here so that I can test and see exactly if this is working properly. Where is it? Here's my user control. I want to make sure that this or this fires, that we're actually setting that during build music back into my option page. And then I want to go over to my package, and in here where it's actually saying here's the file to start, let's make sure that that actually fires, and I'll put a breakpoint there also. So let's start and take a look at exactly how Visual Studio is handling this, starting up and processing and hopefully playing my music. And if this works, I want to see what happens when I close Visual Studio and then reopen it and see if it still has my other MP3 file that I've selected. See if it still has that persisted between sessions, right? Because if you select, here's what I want to run during my session inside Visual Studio, and it doesn't persist between Visual Studio runs, that feels bad, right? That's not a good experience. So I'm going to go Tools, Options, and let me scroll down here for EpicBuildMusic. There it is. All right, so it's it's already trying to persist my music selection, and it shouldn't be doing that. I'm just opening it. Let me take a look at the call stack and see what's happening here. So the checked changed occurred here. And it's because I'm set on the default build music. So it's actually pushing that during build music. It's resetting that value. That feels like it shouldn't be occurring like that, but I'm not losing any data. So I'm okay with that for now. So let me uncheck this. During build music file does not exist. Right, because I haven't selected anything yet. So that feels bad. We're going to need to come back to that. That's going to be an issue. So let me click my load button here. I'm going to choose this file. So it sees it sees the file. I'm in my persist, and it does find that that file exists, and it's going to update my during build music. Cool. All right. Now if I say OK, I should be able to go to recent projects and solutions. Let me load my test project. Let's see if it's playing that other song, right? I know, well, I don't know. Let me double check that my options dialog does have that value still saved in it. Here we go. There's my project. And it is, and those of you that are watching on Tuesday, I think you'll agree with me. The experimental instance of Visual Studio is loading much, much faster than it was last time. So, yes, it does have my setting in here, and it didn't flip that during default music checkbox also. So, that's pretty good. All right, I'm going to cancel out of that dialog. And let me click Start, and let's see if it's playing my Epic Sax music. All right, so it's trying to get the file name from my option dialog, and it does point to the MP3 that I chose. Good. All right, so I have, right, small wins. It is hitting that properly, and if you heard that, it was oh so brief because this project has been built again and again. It did properly play the music, right? And just to make sure that you do hear it, I'm going to do a build, rebuild, so that we hear it for just a little bit here. There it is. And cool. All right. So that worked. And it should have saved my settings between instances. So let me close this, and then I'm going to restart my project, and I want to see if that MP3 file is still saved. So, all right, that's closed. I'm going to stop my project, and I'm going to restart it, and I want to see that same MP3 file saved and in my options dialog so that I can continue, right? So that I have confidence that my settings were persisted between sessions, Visual Studio sessions, right? And then once I have that confidence, because I've never built a Visual Studio extension before, I won't need to keep checking that options dialog is saving properly. So, gosh, some of you may notice I sip from a .NET Rocks mug. The guys on .NET Rocks, they celebrated their 1500th episode today. That's huge. 1500 episodes of a podcast. That's 15 years of content. You know, congratulations, Carl and Richard, on the success of your podcast. I've certainly gotten somewhere and advanced with my career because of listening to that show. Very, very cool stuff. Let's see. I think my other Visual Studio is hiding. There it is. It was hiding in the background. So I don't need to open a project. I'm going to look at Tools, Options. Right, if I search for Epic up here, will it find it? That's so cool. And it didn't save. Well, maybe it did save, but it didn't put my value in the text box. So I think I'm not loading that value properly. So I think I may have. All right, let's take a look at the user control again. So I had this problem where checked changed when that triggers during the page load because I'm setting the default state of the checkbox. I don't want to persist the during music selection when that occurs. So I'm good with this method for right now. Set default during build control state. That's fine. Set during build default checkbox. Okay, so this is being set on the initialize. So I don't want it to persist the during music selection. So I don't want it to change that. So let me set up an internal field here, and I'll call it is initializing. And I'm going to set this by default to true. Just to make sure, I will set it there. And then I will turn it off here. And then what I can do is the persist during music selection. I can put a check right up at the top of this that says if is initializing, return. Don't do anything. Bruno, Giulio, right? Did I pronounce that right? Bruno, thanks so much for following. I appreciate you joining over here on Mixer. Ah, you moved over to Mixer. It works better on your end. Cool. All right. I'm glad you're trying out Mixer and giving it a try. Let me know what you think over on Mixer. I'm certainly keeping an eye on both chat rooms, both states of what's going on. So let me know what you think over there. And if you guys want to throw some messages out on Twitter saying, hey, come on over and check out Jeff. He's writing some code and he's going to build something cool. I'd really appreciate that. We'll try and build up our followers and our viewer count over here. All right, so if I'm initializing, let's not try to persist that state. But I think this set during build default checkbox that I'm doing up here in the initialize, I think I need to do the same thing. I'm missing that with the state, the other, right, the non-default values. So I'm going to need to grab that file that I saved off, and I'm going to want to put that in here as well. So let's create a little bit of space here. And I think it was called, right, during build, where was it? Here we go, music during build text box dot text, and I want to set that equal to the value that's in my options page, but I want, right, yeah. So, you know what? Let's move this. Let's do it down here instead of just this. So if that, right? So if the value if the current during build music equals the default file name, if it does not equal the default file name, then let's set the text box equal to that value. So that was during build music during build text box dot text, and this is going to get too long. Let me put it into a block here. And let's set that equal to options page during build music. Right? And you should move back. I think that works. All right. And I should probably rename this then to set during build. Now, how about initialize during build? Controls. I think that makes more sense as to what I'm doing now. It's not just the checkbox, but it's also the text box. Set during build control state. Cool. All right. I think that fixes that little issue that I caught. So now it should be putting the text back into the box. Let's make sure that it's doing that and that I didn't put myself into a bad state here where I don't have a value coming back. Now I'm also looking here while Visual Studio Experimental Instance is starting. I'm looking at the event list above me here, and it looks like it's only showing the Twitch events, which feels bad because they said they were going to also put the Mixer events in there as well. I'm using Streamlabs and their widgets and gizmos, and you already saw when Bruno joined us from Mixer, over here on the side we had the little alert pop up that he started following us from Mixer, but it's not in the event list above me. That feels weird. So I feel like I need to open a bug with them on a couple things here about getting that merged support. All right, let me look at my options dialog here. Coming up here, we're going to look for Epic because I'm done scrolling now that I know I can search. Cool. All right, so my text box is populated with the appropriate file name, and it's not the default music. Cool. I will click OK, and it should still play that same music. There's my test project. And if that does work, I think I'm at a state where I can start to publish a pre-release of this. Even though I don't have graphics, that user interface is kind of, in the options window, is kind of lame. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can put out a pre-release here that has that working. All right, I'm going to disable all my breakpoints for right now. Where is it? Disable all breakpoints. So that disable all breakpoints says leave them there. There's my sax. Fantastic. I've got the saxophone playing. And it's still building. Completed. And it stopped. I think that's good. I think that's a good integration test. What do you think? Do we ship it? It works? Right? I've got an options dialog that lets me choose the settings. I think it's doing what I want it to do. Let me just check again in my user control here, make sure. So, right when my check changes, set during build control state, and let me just double check over here. So, it's not actually clearing out that text box and setting it to the default music, right? I should probably clear out that text box just to make sure that it's not confusing, right? So if state, so if it's not, oh gosh, I don't think I should do it here. I think I should do it in the check changed. Yeah. Okay, so if default music during build checkbox checked, then I need to blank out that text box. Music during build text box dot text equals string dot empty. And you know what? I'm just going to wrap this just because I don't want anybody tripping and getting confused there. Mordecai says, ship it. And check digits. I would have put some unit tests in to check things like it having saved or restored certain data. You know what? You're right. I would love to put unit tests in this. My challenge is, how do I unit test a Visual Studio extension? I mean, it's a user control. I could probably pull... Let's think about this. I could probably pull some of this out into a class library, right? And if I pulled it into a class library, I can reference that class library from my Visual Studio extension. And I can load up that class library from my unit tests. Do I have that right? I can do that refactoring. And then some of these things around check changed and those things, I can try and simplify a little bit. Yes, I can. All right, and it does sound like a bit of work. You're right. Let me save my current state because I think I'm in a good think I'm in a good position right now for this working. That user control, this code behind, right? I could use some MVVM, right? Model view model concepts around wiring this up so that I can build those tests and be able to inspect some things. I like where you guys are going with trying to push me on this. Let me commit my changes. I'm not going to push anything out yet, but we know that it works. So let's do this. I'm going to do a Control-Shift-S to save everything. And I feel like I have a hotkey. I have a hotkey indicator that I was using in the past that would show you when I hit hotkeys, it would put them up on the screen down here. My friend John Galloway showed me this. Let me see if I can find that. Or was it key? It was an on-screen keyboard. Because I want to stop, I want to stop telling you folks when I hit a hotkey and what exactly it does. I don't see it here. I'll find out what that add-on is here and see if I can get that loaded up so that I'm sure that I can show you and you can get that information. Check Digit says, I sense a lot of plus equals and so on appearing anytime soon. You're right. And Mordecai says, I've never done it before, but can't you just new up the user control? You're right. You can just new up the user control. But these events that are being triggered down here, I can certainly trigger them directly. Let's take a look when we start refactoring. I want to first bring up my console window and I want to start committing some of these changes. And of course, I use the console window because all elite developers, as I'm told by my friends who use Linux, use the command line to work with Git. So let me do a Git status here real quick. I am on the dev branch. Good. And there's all my changes. So I'm going to do a git add period. Let's do a git commit. Completed initial during build music features. Now I did have that labeled as an issue here. I think we finished this one, number 11. So I'm going to say corrected order of events in the user control. Close that. But what I want to do is I want to come in here and Persisting, not that one, user interface to select interactions. I'm going to check select build music and I'm going to reference this, number 5. And I can specify it like that. And when I push this into my dev branch on GitHub, it'll show up as being referenced by that commit here in this interface. There it is. Cool. So I've got a little back and forth. Let me label this as feature. And while I'm not using the help wanted label on some of these. Like I said, you folks are more than welcome to check this out and help with any of these things here. What do we got here? Marketplace. Learn the shortcut might help in showing us what keyboard shortcuts you use. That's a Visual Studio extension. You're right, Mordecai. I can certainly install that and use that. But it's a tool that was built during a Summer of Code session by a bunch of folks. It's an open source tool that will show those hotkeys down here in the corner of the screen. Crumbs. Now I want to go find it for you. Let me turn these off. There we go. What was it? Windows shortcut keys. And there was a way to show them on screen. Show on screen. And on-screen keyboard shortcut. No. I don't want to show Windows. And it was a little... in screen tips. No. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump on WhatsApp here, and I'm going to text my buddy John Galloway directly. Here we go. What is the name of the Windows app that shows the hotkeys you are pressing? Would love to use on my stream. Let's see if John writes back. It is a little bit early. It's about 8 a.m. West Coast time. Gosh, I really feel bad for our friends in LA, out in California, who are having these terrible fires out there. The video of the whole hillside just on fire. It looks like lava running down the side of the hill. Oh, it saddens me. I feel terrible. I'm worried for our friends out there. I have friends in Los Angeles, of course. Our .NET user groups that are out there, our .NET friends out there, programming friends out there. All the best to you. As you get through this, we'll be here to help you out. Of course, donations, money that folks will raise and whatnot. So looking forward to you guys getting through this. And of course, my beloved football Philadelphia Eagles are in Los Angeles this week. I'm hoping they're able to have their football game that's scheduled for Sunday afternoon. But that's very secondary to folks just, making sure that their houses make it through this. So I'm not seeing a response just yet from John, but when they do chime in, we'll see if we can find that extension and install it real quick here. And it's not a Twitch extension, but it's a Windows app that just runs in the background, and it just pops on the screen. Here's the hotkeys you're using. All right, so, and Bruno writes here in the chat room from Mixer, I definitely need to learn more GitHub. You know what? GitHub is a science all to itself, and this is going to sound strange, but as more and more of our projects at Microsoft are open source and are moving over to GitHub, we're learning how to use GitHub too. So I hope that I can share some of the things that we're learning. And if there's stuff that I could be doing better on GitHub that you folks are seeing that I'm screwing up here, let me know. Write it out there in the chat window, and I'll be more than happy to try out your suggestions, and maybe we all learn something. Okay, so I've marked my little checkbox here, and if you don't know how to do the checkboxes, check this out. If you put dash, space, and then square bracket, space, square bracket, it'll create a checkbox for you here, and if you put an X in it, it'll be checked, and you can interact with that, and those checks, the state of those checks changing, will actually be remembered. Mordecai says, I found something, but pretty sure not what I was referencing. Karnak keys. I think that's it. Let me look that up. Karnakkeys.com. That's not how you spell keys. Typing. I do it for a living. This is it. Yes. This was a project that was run. Let's download this. Ooh. Scaling. And save that file. Saved. Let's open that. Yes, I know it's executable. I want to run it. Install. It's installing here on another screen. Let's see if I can see it's installing. Okay, that animated GIF is annoying. Goodbye. All right. I want it to run on over here, and I'm going to put it down in this area. So now if I do Control-C, it's not appearing on the right screen. Put it up here on this. I'm trying to tell it to put it into a different location. No. It looks like it doesn't know the different screens. Let's see here. Oh, I should put this. Let me copy this in. The user interface doesn't want to move. Oh, it actually crashed. I'm actually getting a recommendation here from the boss saying, the boss not being John, saying Keyboard Jedi. Keyboard Jedi. Let's take a look. Keyboard Jedi download from sourceforge.net. Alright, let's see what this is. Mordecai writes, one thing found to be invaluable with GitHub is using fixes, closes, issue number in a PR. Yep, you saw me do that. And which will auto-close the issue when the PR is merged. I didn't know it auto-closed the issue when the PR is merged. That's cool. I'm not sure I want to close the issue just yet, though. Did it download? Where's the download button? I want to download. By Roy Osherov. Ah, okay. 0 downloads this week. Oh, that makes me feel wonderful. Oh, that's a stats page. I don't want the stats. I want the actual file. So I'm gonna let the team know here. I'll try that. Installing live on stream right now. All right. There are no files. Well, that explains it. Let's try that again. Keyboard Jedi. And I'm seeing, you can't see this, but I'm seeing down here that, yeah, Karnak keys is also being recommended to me, but I can't move this user interface because there it is. There's my user interface. So I'm trying to put it here on my second screen. Save. So now if I do a Control-C, it's actually appearing on my other screen down here. Let's try putting it over here. Maybe up this one. And it's appearing on the wrong screen. Right? I'm trying to change my offsets here. Keyboard Jedi is on GitHub, not SourceForge. All right. So I'm going to close Karnak keys, exit that because it doesn't look like it's working. Keyboard Jedi, yeah, it says it's here on SourceForge. GitHub. See link above. GitHub.com, Roy Osherov. Ah, there it is. Let's see. 0 releases. Oh, that makes me feel good. Visual Studio only. Shortcuts will only appear when Visual Studio is the active application. False. Every shortcuts. Yeah, I'm looking for a release here that I can download, and I see 0 releases. That feels bad. So where do I download a release? Let's take a look at Roy's blog. Train your developers. Search. Key Jedi. Doesn't support 2 monitors. All right. Renamed from Short Watcher. Yeah, where's my... Is there a download? Latest version can be found here. All right. Yeah, I don't see a download button here anywhere. Okay. I thought there was a way I got the keyboard Karnak to handle 2 screens a little bit better. So there it is. If I try and put it on the other screen, save. See, and it is appearing, but it's appearing on the wrong screen here for me. That feels bad. Appearance. Width, opacity, text color. Shortcuts only. Yeah, if I try and move the offset here, it'll move. Right. And it won't let me control how long it appears. I'm gonna have to tinker with this and see if I can get it to appear. Alright. I will come back. We will work on Karnax another time and see if we can get it to support. Maybe I need to work on that one, see if we can get that working better so we can make it appear here on stream. So I've got the build music. Let's go back to the project. I am back over here. So I've saved and I've pushed, and I know this works. In fact, let me tag this as working. I want to put a version number in this also. Right, where's my version numbers? Right, that's in properties. Assembly info. Here we go. I don't want to make this 1.0 because it's not a 1.0. I want to make this a 0.2. Save that. And I'm going to git commit this. Okay. Git commit. Set version number to 0.2. And I'm going to tag it. Now, tag, for those of you who aren't familiar, tag is a way for us to put a label on a version inside our Git repository so that we can reference it and we have a point there that we can roll back to, branch from, a handle on a version, okay? Let's us pin that down. So I'm going to label this as v0.2. I'll call it 0.2.0. Nah, just 0.2. I don't need the extra 0. What? I've already got a tag 0.2? I don't like that tag. I'm removing that tag. So I can remove it, I believe. What is it? I think it's dash D will remove the tag. So I'm going to move it here. V0.2. Good. And I want this one to be 0.2. All right. Let me push those changes. And eventually I'm going to end up compressing all of these down, squashing them, and sending them over into the master branch. So I'm going to push, and I want to include my list of tags, so I do a dash tags, and it'll push that tag information, all of that up into my dev branch. So that's there. I'm tagged, and now I can go and I can freely do some of that refactoring that CheckDigits was suggesting to move some things around so we can build some unit tests. I kind of agree with you that I feel weird around managing the state of this user interface and doing it all with this back and forth on the user interface. So let's do some refactoring here into a core library, maybe? And then the actual extension itself, and move some things around here. These blue underlines are because I've been a bad developer and I haven't been following all of the style guidelines that are being recommended for me here, because I do things like I don't add braces to all of my if statements. Yeah. All right, let me add another project here and we can start doing some refactoring. So let's add a new project, and I'll just call this, we're going to want this to be a class library, but not .NET Core. I want it to be a .NET Framework class library, because only .NET Framework runs inside of Visual Studio. Okay, so this will be fritz.epicbuildmusic.core. Cool. And then let me add that unit test library. Another class library, and I'm just going to call this test. If you saw any of my previous streams where I was working on my configuration builders, you'll know that I've gone through a little bit of a problem here with and pain naming things test and the class libraries that go along with them, and how annoying it is to get those things referenced, and your using statements just get twisted if I were to call this test.fritz.epicbuildmusic, or if I called it fritz.epicbuildmusic.test. Ugh. This isn't going to be published and going anywhere. I'm using it here in Visual Studio only. That's fine where it is. Let me manage the NuGet packages on this, and I want to get NUnit into the mix here. So, oh gosh, there it is right there. NUnit is a unit test library that's been out forever. I've been using it forever. I'm a real big fan of it, and just recently, NUnit and the folks over there, Charlie Poole, Rob Prowse, their efforts have been accepted and they've been added to the .NET Foundation. So if you use NUnit, you know you're going to get great support from the .NET Foundation. Should something happen, you know, this project will be supported and kept around for a very long time. All right, so I've got NUnit. I need the NUnit. Is it adapter? I forget. No, it's not the test adapter. It's not the runners. Let's see what we got going on here. I've got the wife asking a question here on my watch. Let me just write back real quick. There we go. All right, I want to make sure. Here it is. Adapter for running tests in Visual Studio. This is the one I want. So this way, my unit test runner inside Visual Studio, my test explorer, and also my live unit tests will run all the time for my code here inside this project. So I should be able to start off marking this as a test fixture, even though it doesn't have any code in it just yet. And I'm going to control period on that. Yes, it's using that. And I should be off and running, able to work on this fixture. Let's... how do I want to do this? I want to move... I think I want to move the entire user control out. And I want to move it over here into this core project. And I definitely want to move my music player over here into this. Probably my option page as well. But when I start looking at option page, right, I think this dialog page, yeah, it references Visual Studio. So I think I don't want to move this. In fact, I think I want to make this implement an interface so that I can push this around and not have to bring Visual Studio into my concerns, into my class library. Bruno has a question in the chat room. Does NUnit have something like Visual Studio's deployment item attribute? Are you looking at how I can change the deployment of that unit test so I can run it perhaps in production? Talk to me a little bit more about that. I'm not familiar with the deployment item attribute. What does that do for you, Bruno? Let me start a little bit of this refactoring here, just so that I can start referencing things over here in my core project. So let me start off. I'll add a, let's call this build music options. And this isn't a class. Let's make this an interface. And I'm going to control period on it, and I'm going to rename the file to iBuildMusicOptions. So some of the refactorings that you're going to see here are brand new in Visual Studio Update 5. You'll see Microsoft folks reference this as version 15.5. It's 15th version of Visual Studio. 0.5, it's a minor release. So there you go. And sometimes you'll actually hear some of the folks refer to this as dev, because the code name for Visual Studio is dev. So you hear us sometimes slip and call it dev 15.5. So I've got my interface here, and I want to put the during build music into this. So let's make sure that this implements the iBuildMusicOptions. interface, and I'm going to control dot on that and add reference to my core project. So I got my using statement, and now let's see if I can control dot on this. Nope. There's in some other add-ins for Visual Studio, including ReSharper and Code Rush, the old Just Code. I don't know if Telerik still supports that. You can refactor and do a pull-up, and you can pull this into the interface that's being referenced. So I'm actually going to just copy this, put it right in there, and that is now satisfied. That interface requirement is now available in both locations. Let's put a little documentation into this also, because who doesn't like documentation? So the file name of the music to be played during a build, during a solution or project build. Yeah, that looks good. Let me copy that. Put that here inside this, just to give it a little bit of reference, a little capability there. Now, I don't think I need to reference too much else here with my option page. This is loading up my general options user control, and I think I want to start moving that now. I want to move that into my core project. So this, which during the initialize, right, it has that reference to options page. Well, now I don't want to reference options page. I want to reference EpicBuildMusic options, and I'll be able to work with that instead of the concrete option page. So let's start moving that out. So I'm going to grab this, and can I just drag it down into this project? Looks like it put it over there. And then let me... What happens if I delete? I've got this under source control. I'll delete. Properties. And it's in my core folder. Cool. All right. So now... Page option page this. Type or namespace user control could not be found. All right. I think... Alright, so let me open this one. Alright. So we've got some things to fix here in moving this over. Let's see, let me open that up. Let's look at the class. Oh, look at this. All right, so it's a partial class, and my other half of this should be here too. All right, there's my resources. Looks like the other half of that didn't come down with me. Oh, that feels bad. Now I regret deleting that file, don't I? So yeah, where's the other part of that? The actual CS that I was working in, it didn't bring over. It looks like it only brought over the one, and I deleted that file. That feels bad. So I did do this. Sad trombone noise. All right, I like that idea. No. Part of me wants to have that music, that sound effect fire whenever you hit Control Z in Visual Studio too. Right, and there is also sad trombone. I don't... Go away. All right. So let's go get that file back. Now, how do we get that back from Git? I should do a git stash, I think. Right? Refactoring. Right? I want to git stash. Right, if I just do git stash. Cool. All right. So now if I do a git status, it sees those two projects, and actually, it doesn't see that I deleted the file. Is it still there on disk? Is it still there on disk? Tell me it's still there on disk. Yes, it is still there. All right. So let me copy that. Yep. I'm going to go up, and then I want to go into Fritz, EpicBuildMusic Core, right? It says there's already one there. Yes, do that. And it's not just the CS, right? There was a designer one in there too. Yeah. Up and into Fritz, EpicBuildMusic Core. Oh, it says there's one of those too. All right. Let me come back over here. Not collapse all. Oh, bad. All right, so refresh. So inside this CS file, and it's grouchy about that. Oh. I'm thinking yay. I'm thinking yay, Bruno, but I'm not seeing it. Oh no. General options user control CS. Yeah, there's the code I wrote. But when I open that CS file, it's not seeing it. So there's the designer side of the partial. All right, there's my code. All right. Ah, there we go. There's where it's not seeing user control. Add reference to system Windows forms. Did I fix it? Did I fix it? Still grouchy. Ignore and continue. Designer cannot process the code at line 42. The code within the method initialize component is generated by the designer and should not be manually modified. I didn't. It wasn't me. Could put the designer in an unstable state. Danger is my middle name. Yes. Oh, now I've really broken it. Maybe it's missing a reference complaining about forms. You're right. It was missing a reference. You're absolutely right. And I've now done bad things. All right. Let's try copying those files over again. Copy, general options, user control. I'm just going to do a star up into Fritz. There we go. Copy all, right? Because all keyboard cowboys work on the command line. This Explorer thing. Let's see if that... All right, hey, look. No red lines. Oh, it still doesn't like it. EpicBuildMusic User Control Designer 42. No, don't do that. Don't do that. It's grouchy. It doesn't like how I moved that over. Let me copy that again. Do that with all the files. Let's refresh over here. No, doesn't like it. Check Windows Forms design time error list. I don't want to do that either. Let's go to that code. I didn't have a reference to system drawing. Look at that. Look at that. Bruno, I think you were onto something there. So let's close that. Refresh. It works. It works. All right. So it's now complaining. Let's take a look at the code that it's... I don't want the designer. I want the code. View code. So thank you, Bruno. You picked that one out. That I was missing that reference. So here's where we're going to start to do our dependency injection, right? Instead of referencing option page directly, because the option page is a dialog page, which is a Visual Studio construct, I want to reference my interface, not IntelliSense Builder. I build music options. And I need to change my namespace here to that, because I'm now no longer in the extension proper. I'm in my class library that's being referenced. So I'm now moved over here. All right. So initialize component does not exist in the current context. Yes it does. Oh, ooh. All right, I nearly broke this again, didn't I? Let me view this code, and let me move this over there so that the designer... There we go. Right, I was in the wrong namespaces. So I think I've now moved it properly into here. Yeah. All right. Next step. Right, look, I've got red lines all over the place. This is just grouchy. Let me go into option page. No, I don't want the designer. I want view code. That's not the code. It's actually right there. So new general option user control. I should be able to say, yep, and I get my using statement, and that works. So page.option page, which is an I build music options, equals this. Now, remember I did my git stash, so I should be able to say build music options, and that should work. So page option page, which is an I build music options. I'm going to cheat for a second here. Get that. Implement interface. What the heck is that? Who? What? Where did this? No, bad. I am not a fan of that format. That should just be a get set. Not a fan. All right, and I want to copy over that just so I have that comment here in my code. All right, so I build music options. This class is defined as, but when I say page.option page, inaccessible. My user control. This is an internal. We need to make it a public. And that goes away. Good. All right. So now I'm defining the options page. It adheres to this interface, and I'm passing it in to my user control so that I can work with it. Next problem. The music player doesn't... My music player doesn't exist inside of my class library. So do I bring it over into the class library? Part of me says yes. Right? Because I don't reference. Let's do it. Let's bring that music player over. It's very simple. I will bring that over into my core project. Let's see, this shouldn't have any... Yeah. Let's make everything tabs. Because tabs are better than spaces, even though those folks out there say that tabs... Folks who use spaces get paid more. Ha! I use tabs. Alright. So I think now music player should work for my general options user page. I'm going to need to check over here in my package. So this is calling into Music Player to say begin playing. But Music Player is right now it's in the wrong namespace. Let me move it namespaces. And that should actually get this a little grouchy. Yeah. So let's put a using statement in there. And I think with that simple set of refactoring, I think my extension should still work. Let's try it. I'm going to click start here. I want to see that my Epic Sax music is still in my options page. Well, there's a problem. That's not going to work right away. No, don't run the last. Show me the errors. My core is using 4.7.1, higher version than that. So, I'm a big fan of the 4.7.1 framework. Let's push this back to 4.6. That's fine. So now I'm using the 4.6 framework to build this. And I'm not doing anything that's 4.7.1 specific. I would recommend that you use 4.7.1. There's a number of fixes and things in there. But to keep things lined up here, I'm going to use 4.6. 4.6 is still supported. We'll continue using that. Skyhoshi writes in the chat room, hey, C# Fritz, good to see you today. Are you making this a regular schedule? Yes. Yes, this is going to be a regular thing. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you can't join me here live on the stream, I will, of course, have this recorded, republished over to YouTube. There's a playlist there on my channel called Fritz and Friends. You can check that out, and I'll have all the previous recordings in there. And, of course, I'm going to publish a wrap-up blog post talking about what we accomplished, with links off to the projects, hopefully a link to a download for this V6 so you can give it a try. And, yeah, this is going to be a regular thing at 10 a.m. I did reach out to some other folks, last night on Twitter, Wednesday evening, my time, East Coast time, to see if it would work out to try and get some folks who are outside of the American time zones or the European time zones. If I were to do some streaming in the evening, say maybe 9, 10 o'clock at night on Wednesday night, if they would join us then, I got some feedback from some folks who would tune in. Maybe I might drop a Wednesday evening into the schedule. We'll take a look. A key thing here is while doing some of this coding is part of my job, I don't want it to take over my job, right? So that's kind of important. I need to make sure that I'm still working on scheduling events, things like Build, Ignite, .NET Conf, MVP Summit, so that we can connect in person. So there is a schedule posted on the page, right? On my channel. If you scroll down there, you'll see a little widget with my schedule. I'll put something similar over on Mixer. I need to spend some time with the Mixer user interface and get used to that. There is another setting in here that I want to show you. Is it Build? There's an Advanced Options. Here it is. Under Build. See it down here? There's an Advanced button. I'm not a fan of advanced buttons hiding like this on an interface. But if you click this, you can specify the language version that you want to use. Now, I have it pointing to the latest major version. So check this out. I'm going to change this to C# 7.1 so I can take advantage of the 7.1 features in my class library here. Skyhoshi says, I myself have been trying to find a way to do a .NET talk show, invite people to talk about what they are working on, but not limit it to .NET languages. It's a good idea. I like that idea. I think there are folks that have been doing this for a very long time that'll tell you that there's lots of room for space in this. It's being able to repeat it on a regular basis and be able to get compelling guests to come on is very hard to do, and it's having that persistence that has helped to build some folks, build their reputation, build a good audience around this. Space Shot, Static Void Podcast, but make it a live conversation. Is that Chris using an alternate name there? So Static Void Podcast is a podcast. Some friends, Jess Chadwick, Todd France, and Chris Gomez. They record and they present, but they've run into some challenges with keeping it on a regular basis. I've appeared on that podcast once or twice. It's a nice podcast. They're very critical. They're not going to pull any punches around what they're discussing, so they're going to get right to it. And they're critical in a good way. They're not saying these things are bad, but they are going to focus on what are some good things to discuss and learn about the technologies that we are using. All right, back into my code here. I think, did I fix the way that this was being referenced now? So I changed my versions here. Let me do a Control-Shift-B to force the build of my entire solution here. And now I'm getting reflection type load exception, unable to load one or more requested type, retrieve the loader exceptions property. Now that feels bad. Reference to assembly EpicBuildMusic Core version 1 does not have a strong name. Let's see here. Skyhoshi says, sorry for the sidetrack. Thanks for entertaining me, even if you don't respond. No, I'm definitely responding to you. Not a problem. If I'm here to talk to you. If you've got some comments, some questions, you're gonna take the time to put that in my chat room, to send me an email, throw it out on Twitter. I will absolutely respond to you. It's important to me that I help you. On Twitter, I've got a comment here. I'm not in .NET Core. I need to add them to the project. Add who into the project? Throw your comments in the chat room. I am keeping an eye on Twitter, but if you have questions or comments about the work that I'm doing here, put it over here in the chat room so we can all see it and we can act on it. Does Skyhoshi mean respond in chat? Maybe. It's a little bit easier for me to talk so everybody can hear it, but I can certainly respond in chat. Let me see here. So let me fix this. I need to have a strong name on my core project. Now I have a key that I've saved that is out here and I'm using for this project, the extension project. And since the extension is strong named, right, everything that goes into Visual Studio needs to be strongly named. That has a trickle down effect, which also means now my class library needs to be strongly named. So let's do this up here. I'm going to add a solution folder, and I will just call this shared items, and I'm going to move that key. It wants to move it up like that. Let me exclude it from the project. Let's see here. In the chat room, Skyhoshi says, what I meant was, doesn't always have to respond to him. I like it when he does, but I'm not going to dislike if he doesn't, though I might ask again if I feel it's important. And Bruno is sharing the playlist. Just sharing because I had not subscribed to the YouTube channel and just fixed the issue. Cool. If the YouTube channel is really it's replays of what we're doing here. Unless there's a catastrophe like that interview I tried to do last week with John and I didn't have Skype working too well, I didn't republish it. You can still find it in the archives on Twitch, but you will see content going over to YouTube. So I'm going to move my strongly named key here. I want to move that out into my shared items so I can reference it from both projects, so I can strongly name both of them at the same time. So let me do some moving around of that. So I've excluded it from the project here. I'm going to go back into my command window here, my console. There it is. Now I'm going to move it up a folder. So let me just do a move key, and I'm just going to move it up one. So now if I refresh over here, cool. So it's not there. I'm going to add it into my shared items project just so I can still have it inside Visual Studio, even though I'm not actually going to be using it from within here. I'm just going to add that. Ugh, feels bad. Go away. So now there it is. And now I'm going to add that as an existing item, right? And I'm going to add it as a linked item so it doesn't move it into my project here. So if you haven't done this before, let me show you what you can do here. So I'm choosing my strongly named key, and instead of clicking add, I'm going to click the right half of the button here, or right 15% of the button here, and you can say add as link. So it doesn't move it into my project, but it is referenced and available. And you see it's got this little glyph on it here to show that it's being referenced from somewhere else and it wasn't actually moved into the folder. I'm going to do the same thing down here inside my core project. I'm going to do add existing item, and let me navigate up a folder. I'm going to say all files, and I'm going to grab key SNK, add as link, and there it is. So this should still be strongly named and being built properly. I'm going to do a properties on this. And where is it? I want to strongly name. I haven't done this in forever. Signing. All right, sign the assembly. Choose a strong name file. There it is. Okay. Let me save that. Now let me go back over to this project. Let me make sure that I'm still referencing that key properly. So here I am. Yeah, I lost that. Let me update this so it's using that. There's my key, and it should now be able to build and reference and sign those properly. Right, build succeeded. Cool. Let's make sure that it still works, that I see my, right, I chose the Epic Sax MP3 in my dialog earlier. So I'm going to start and debug. I want to still see that Epic Sax MP3, and I want to do a build and make sure that it still fires and plays that sax music, and then I'll have a little bit of integration confirmation that I've moved things properly. And then we can start refactoring and generating some unit tests around here, because I agree with check digits. I don't feel safe without tests, right? I want to have tests. It makes me feel good about myself that I have tests that work properly. And I think I did a really bad thing here, because you can see Visual Studio crashed. And I've actually got 2 Visual Studios now opening. Ooh. Ugh. Ugh. I've done it now. Oh yeah. I've angered the gods. Right? So you can't see this. So the experimental instance is loaded up here, and my instance that I'm actually working in loaded up a little sideways here. So I broke it. Is that Eupheus? Is that how you pronounce that? Never had a Visual Studio crash. Watch me. I can make Visual Studio crash. And look at that. The recent project list is still empty. There we go. Reload my project. See if we can figure that out. Alright, so that's running again. The debugger isn't attached, but I'm actually okay with that. Let me see if my experimental instance has my EpicBuildMusic. There it is. And it did load my MP3. It has it properly in there. So it's both showing it. Let me just make sure the music plays, and then I think we can say that our refactoring was successful, and then we can start writing some unit tests and try and clean up some of this code, because damn, it's ugly. So build, rebuild solution. There's my saxophone music, and it stopped. Fantastic. All right. So thanks to some of the suggestions from you folks there in the chat room, I think I've refactored and I've got this working a little bit nicer now. And I've only got right inside my Visual Studio package, my extension, things that are Visual Studio concerns. And the things that are core to how this actually runs are down here inside my core project. Now, I will admit, my Build Music package here, I feel like the attach to these events inside, where is it? Where'd the events go? Package members? Yeah, see these events? I feel like I could refactor this a little bit more. And right, and I could move some of these things. I could move some of these things over into another class file that has the same name. Right? And then I could have the entire wire up to the music player all functioning outside of Visual Studio. Should I get a little bit more aggressive and do that? What do you guys think? Move these out, and then instead of having my update solution begin method here, actually put these methods into, right? Because really, I've only got 2 methods that I'm implementing here, right? And I'm not using this get projects and solution method anymore. I think I can delete that safely. My helper here shows that I'm not referencing it anywhere, so I'm going to delete that. If I look at the actual code that I've written inside this, it's really only inside update solution begin, and where's the other one? And update solution done. Everything else is just returning the default stuff. And where does update solution begin? This is coming in through which interface? Right? Can I simplify this even further? Right? Because I'm implementing all these interfaces and all this nonsense up here. I do need to somehow, right? I need to keep this separate from my code, right? How I get that options page. That is something specific to Visual Studio that I don't want to have to manage. But this advise solution events, I think that IVS update solution events, that's the thing that I'm actually hooking here. Right, and it's this one. What happens if I delete this one? I'm just going to comment that out. Right? And then, oh, look at that. IVS update solution events. No, but it is an IVS, I guess, yeah, it wants that. All right. So I do need to keep both of those. I think... But I really would love to move just that simple call out. And put that into its own class. Into its own implementation that I can hook up. Thinking. If I moved it into its own class, I would have to raise the event here or call that method. And I don't want to... I'd rather passively have it called than me actually write some code to call that method directly, right? What do you think? How can we do that? I don't know. Let me come back to that. Yeah, let me... And right, because I think this is very model view model that we're doing here, and this is our view, and I think same thing with the user control. All right, let me come back to that. Let's write some tests around how the user control is capturing and presenting those settings. So I'm going to back away from the package. I'm going to back away from the options here. Now, the options are being passed into the general options user control as as a as a property. I can't put it in the constructor because I can't put it in the constructor. You know what? It should go in the initialize so that it can be accessed there. Let me make this an internal. Right? I want that to be required in order to start using this. So before it actually starts running here, let's capture those. Option page equals options. Okay, and let's make this a private set. And now I did just break the package over here, right? Because not the package in the option page, right? Because when it calls initialize, see that? Let's get rid of this. So now we saved the line of code. We can say initialize this. All right. So this is what I want to mimic as I start doing some of these unit tests. So here I am in my test fixture. So let's start writing some unit tests around the initialize, right? Let's create a folder, and you'll see why in a second here. Initialize. I'm going to delete this class because I'm actually going to drive a little bit of naming out of this. So let's add a class. I'm going to do Shift-Alt-C or Alt-Shift-C, and I will call this initialize, right? So these are the things around the initialize class. So given, when, then, or it's typically a format for these. So given no music selected, right? So that's the name of my class. So now I can build tests that are called initialize given no music selected, and then I can start inspecting and building tests around that. So check this out, right? I'll do a control period, get my using.NET framework in there. So now, if you look at my test explorer, go ahead, run on. It's not going to find anything. So public void, no music selected, should check default music checkbox. Okay. Now I'm going to have the same setup for all of my tests because given no music was selected. So let's set up a, I believe they call it one-time setup. No, it's not one-time setup. Each time we'll run the same setup. We'll prep our tests with the same the same setup here. So we'll call this test setup. And I'm going to want to have, right, so when initialize fires here, it's receiving these options. And those options don't have anything set. So let's, I'm going to start creating mocks here. In case you haven't worked with mocks, I'm going to start using mock objects here to be able to reference and stub out something that looks like our interface. So let me add a mock library to this. Please, if any of you, if you haven't used mocks before, you need me to explain it a little bit more, drop me a line in one of the chat rooms here, and I can dig into it a little bit and describe exactly what I'm doing and how this benefits our testing. I like to use mock, M-O-Q, as my mock objects library. Look at that. It says it's targeting 4.7.1, even though I'm using... I thought I changed my project to 4.6. Let me... Oh, you know what? My test project is 4.7.1. I'm going to need to add a reference. And be able to add that reference to my projects, to my core project, because that's what I'm testing. Okay, so during test setup, all right, so I should have a mock repository. I like to call my mock repository mockery. Create that as a new mock repository. I'm going to control period on that and get my using statement. I'm going to control period on this, generate that field. So when these tests are run, I have a private mock repository here. No, I'm not going to do that. It wants me to use the expression body and have it... No, that's... Is it throwing that as a... No, I don't want that recommendation. That's a bad recommendation. I don't like that one. But why am I getting a red error on that? Okay, let's say I do that. I still get the red line. No argument given that corresponds to default behavior. I want my default to be loose. So loose says default values are returned when necessary. So nulls for reference types, 0 for value types, empty enumerables or arrays. That's fine. All right, there I got rid of my red underbar. All right, so I've got a mock repository here, and I also want to make sure that I create my empty build music options. So let's call it, let's call it empty build music options, because I want to be very explicit as to what I'm doing here. So mockery.create, and this is an iBuild music options. Fix that. And if I control dot on it, I get my using statement. So because I've created it and I'm using the loose behavior here, nothing will be returned from that interface when it tries to access the during build music string. That'll be an empty value. So I'm going to control dot on this, generate that field. Good. So now for my test, I have the 3 A's: arrange, act, assert. So my arrange, I've already created, and I have my empty build music options. That's out there. No big deal. I'm going to be creating my general options user control. So I should probably have that up here, and that's my system under test. So that's fine. I'll call it, let's just call it control, and that will be new general options user control. I'm surprised I'm not getting the issue there with referencing Windows Forms. I'm wondering if that came in with me automatically. So arrange, I'm not actually arranging anything. and act. So I'm going to take my control and I'm going to initialize and pass into it my empty build music options. But the actual object that was generated. Okay? So now initialize. The type user control is defined in assembly. There we go. I need to add that reference. Okay, so now I've initialized the control. Okay? And I want to next... I want to inspect to make sure that my default checkbox is checked. Right? Given no, should check default music checkbox. So the check here is going to be, I need to reach into that control, and I want to check the state of the checkbox, and I don't see that state here, because it's actually in the other half of this class that has that control. So here's where, do I expose that checkbox or do I expose the checked state? I think I want to expose the checked state. So let me control properties, control UI properties. Okay. So let's make this a default. What did we call that? Default music during build. Now the get is going to be the default music during build checkbox checked. Hold that thought. I think there's more refactoring we can do here. But now I have a way to check, to inspect that checkbox from outside of it, because that, right, I don't think I can reach in. There's my Boolean. I can't touch that checkbox because it's private. That's being managed by my user control. So now I can say assert is true. Control default music during build. Yeah, that's it. And let's output some text about what it is. If it fails, no music was selected, but the default music during build checkbox was not checked. All right. So now I should be able to run that test. I'm going to click run all over here, and it's going to build, inspect, find these tests, and it should come back and tell me exactly what it did here. And then I think with that one test in place, I'm seeing we're just about out of time here. I'll commit these changes, push them, and I'll be pretty happy with my refactoring up to that point. And failed. Okay, why did we fail here? No music was selected, but the default checkbox was not checked, so the state of it was false. Even though I called initialize and I passed this in. So let's debug here and see if it's actually checking that checkbox. See what it's actually doing. So I'm now going to right click and do a debug, and I want to step through and see exactly why that's not happening. Now the other benefit that we're going to start to run into with this is it should start becoming faster for me to write some of these features. So here we go. I'm going to reach into that initialize. Let me step in. So here I am on my user control initializing. So is initializing true? Okay. And it's saving off my options page. Now if I look at the options object here, function evaluation requires all threads to run. Come back to that. All right, initialize during build controls. So here we go. Look at this. Option page during build music equals default file name. So even though nothing was set, right, or that was emptied, it's not checking the box. So there's another state that I'm not properly testing for. So I'm going to continue and let that fail, but I think we've got another fix I can put over here in my user control. I can say, yeah, stop debugging. Thank you. So I can say option page dot during build music equals string dot, or no. I can say, wrap this with string is null or empty. There we go. So if for some reason it gets emptied out, then we will run that. Let's run this again and let's see if it's properly checking, even though there was nothing set there. And build succeeded. Here comes my tests. Cool. Looks like I've got a successful test. Okay. Now, if we showed the full name of this, right, and so given no music selected, should check default music checkbox, right? That feels like a full description of the exact scenario of my test. What I should do is, of course, turn on my live unit testing in Visual Studio 2017, and I'll be able to watch and see these things finish and run properly. The last thing that I want to do here before I check things in, and I kind of hinted at it, inside my user control here, and you can see I'm not testing many of these lines of code yet at all. And my live unit test should kick off here and catch up and show me exactly what it's testing and running. Right, go ahead, run. Show me. This default music during build is inspecting that checked state. I don't think it's a good idea for my code to be managing and inspecting the state of that checked when I can access it indirectly through this property. So I'm going to set this, and I'm going to call it, well, I'm not even going to call, right? Default music during build checkbox.checked equals value. So now, right, the places where I am setting that, let me do a control F and see if I can find the places. So now, instead of passing that in, right, I can just change this to this dot default music during build. Okay. So when this runs, right? So it's setting those text boxes state. And here, let's get rid of that, because there might be some other effects that are happening when I set that state. And in fact, I think I should move this set during build control state over here into this. No, that's a bad idea. Because, right, set during build control state. Oh, no. That's fine. Let's take this. I was afraid I was going to get into a circular reference. Let's take this, and I'm going to drop it down here after I set that value for the checkbox. And let's call and set all the other control state appropriately at the same time. So I'm saving that, and I'm expecting my live unit test to run here and pick up and tell me what's going on here. Pause live unit testing. Yeah, why isn't it running? No background tasks running. I'll have to stop it and restart it. See what's going on there. And then I think we're going to be done for the day. Alright, so that ran properly. Good. I'm happy with that. We can inspect and do more with this next time. So let me do a git status. There you can see my test project. I'm actually, you know what, I should get rid of my git stash. Right? Since I was able to fix that. So git stash drop. Okay. And then I should be able now to do, if I do a git status. Cool, there's all my code. All right. So let's add my core project and my test project. Refactored to be able to unit test. And I will push. Cool. And because this works the way it is right now, let's do a release build real quick. So I'm going to change my configuration to release. I'm going to right click on this and build. And I should get a v6 out the other side here that we'll be able to publish along with that 0.2.0 tag. And then you folks will be able to download and give it a try. I'm not going to publish it to the marketplace just yet. So let's see. Build succeeded. Okay. CD bin, CD release. There's my v6. All right. So I'm going to go back over to here. I'm back in Visual Studio. I'm going to go over to code. And it says one release here. And it's got the zip. That's the zip of that source code. I thought there was a way for me to attach a binary to this. And I'm blanking on it right now. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to publish that v6 to my blog so that you can download it and check it out from there. What do we got here? But I want to make sure that you can get your hands on this and give it a try. I've committed, pushed up my code. That is sitting in my dev branch. If you want to take a look and test that out. Cloudicca. Gosh, I thought you followed us a couple days ago. Thanks for following. I appreciate you joining us. I'm going to check out. I will export the video here, and we'll have a follow-up blog post talking about where we are, and we can do some more refactoring so we can start to add more new features. I hope you join me on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. We'll take care of and work through a little bit more of this then. Thanks so much for joining me here this morning. I'll see you next time.